If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to Why Write. Hi, welcome to Why Write. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and thanks for tuning in for another episode of Why Writers Write and Why You Can Be a Writer Too. Today, I have a Zoom guest, as we can see on my screen, and her name is Randy Peyser. And Randy is out in California, so obviously she can't be in the studio today, but I'm so grateful that she's here. And let me tell you a little bit about Randy. So she edits and ghostwrites books, and she gets authors book deals. She gets them book deals with literary agents and publishers. Her clients have been featured on Hallmark TV, Daily Mail TV, in Oprah Magazine and Time Magazine, on the Wall Street Journal, and USA Today's bestseller list. The books that she has represented and the authors are found in airports and libraries and bookstores and FedEx offices and Office Max stores and more and more and more. And I'm so excited to have her on the show because, of course, as an author myself, I want to know more. And I know, for the aspiring writers out there who do have books that, you're looking to get published, especially in a traditional way, Randy's going to be the one to be able to help us out here. She has a couple books that she's written herself. And let me tell you, the titles alone grab my attention. And of course, titles are the first thing we see when we look at a book. So I can't wait to find out a little bit about her titles that I have read some of the books. So they're great. She has a book, Crappy to Happy. And that book was actually featured in a movie. We're going to find out what movie that is. There it is, Crappy to Happy. And, she also has a write a book program, and she is the owner of Author One Stop. So, I could go on and on with a lot more accolades that she has, but the fact that she's a book editor, she's a coach, she's a speaker, and she knows how to get authors, a platform. I want to welcome Randy. Hi.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here, Angela. I'm just, very excited to share information. I primarily help first-time authors, and most people don't even consider themselves to be authors. It's like, hey, I don't know how to write, but I want to make an impact. I'm really here because I have a message that I want to share. And those are the people who I love to help get book deals because once you have a book deal, you have no idea the new doors that will open for you to make your impact.
Yeah. So Randy, how did you begin your career to help other authors? I mean, it's a great thing to help other people and to help them, move ahead in their career, but how did you get to where you are in your career?
It was an entirely organic process. I was deeply enmeshed in the nonprofit world. And I worked for nonprofits from preschools through seniors, through disabilities, through just every possible population almost you could think of. I was working with in my career. And then I have a joke and I say I slept my way into the publishing industry. But what happened was I fell in love with a person who was running a very large magazine in the Bay Area. The relationship didn't last, but I wound up taking over the magazine. And then I became editor-in-chief of a national magazine. And then I wrote my first book, that Crappy to Happy book. And I was looking for a publisher, and I'm going to New York. I'm going to the big publishing industry trade show. At that time, Book Expo America was a big feeding frenzy for the entire publishing industry in the United States. And that's really where the magic happened for me, where I met my publisher. And then very organically, I just started helping other people. Now, this was close to 25 years ago.
Wow.
So for the last 25 years, I've helped so many people get book deals. In fact, in the last 6 months alone, I've gotten 9 people book deals. And let me tell you,
Wow. All right. Well,
lot. That's a lot.
that's a lot.
So,
I mean,
yes.
I guess
And
my question, I know that, you wrote Crappy to Happy, which sounds like it kind of got you into the publishing world.
right.
You have another book, which I, really love, and I am a firm believer in miracles. And, you have the power of miracle thinking. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, for me, having the belief and having the faith that you can write a book and it's going to be something, is a miracle in itself. And it sounds like, you are a believer in this miracle thought, but you're also a miracle maker for, authors to be able to not only help them, but to know what is a good selling book.
Yes, I mean, I love getting people book deals. Love it. This is me and my passion. And in many genres. So for example, of these, it was actually 9 or 10 books that I just sold over the last 6 months. 4 of them were business books. One was a memoir. One was a transgender novel. One was an autism caregiver's guide. One was a whistleblower book. I mean, just this wide variety of different, and one was a mind, body, spirit book, a wide variety of books. But I'm really here
So
to
how does
support
someone get
people.
their books into your hands? How do you find them?
So I have many referral partners. People can find me easily online at author1stop.com, my company. I get a lot of business from LinkedIn. So, I because of what I do, there's a big demand and there's not a whole lot of people who help first-time authors get these big book deals. And
Yeah, and I mean,
so,
I can just imagine how inundated you do get with emails. How do you sort through that slush pile? How do you have the time to read the query letters and or the manuscripts that are coming to you?
So there's a different process for working with each project. So for example, I start with just a 15-minute, get to know you, meet and greet kind of conversation. And I ask the right kind of questions to discern from a positioning standpoint, is this a book that I think a publisher will be interested in? And then from the business side of publishing, which is a whole other conversation, but it's equally as important as
Yes.
the content itself. And so I know how to ask the right questions to get the right information I need to help a person know what track their book is best suited for. Because I would never waste anyone's time or money. I'm not about that. The book has to be stellar and it has to meet a lot of publishing industry standards.
Yeah.
And if it does, then certainly I could pitch it. And there's a
Yeah.
whole process. So for example, if somebody writes a book, the process is first, we're going to read it, we're going to analyze it, we're going to use the comments bar in Word, we're going to go through it page by page, and we're going to see, are there areas that need to be strengthened? And in that reading round, that assessment round, we're also discerning, is this a book we think publisher will be interested in buying? And, of course, always being completely honest with the author and saying, this book would have a better chance self-published or, in some other form for these reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I've
So
had a lot of
that's the
guests
first
on the show.
step.
I'm sure you've seen a few episodes as a subscriber to yWrite. Thank you. Like talking about, for a writer, like I like to hear the stories of why someone writes, like what prompted you to write this book, the why behind not necessarily the story, but the writer's life. But at the same time, like we then have to talk about, like you said, the business end, which is a whole different other beast, because writing a book is solitary, it's hard, it's dedication, motivation, and a passion that has to go into it. And then of course you get to the stage where you're, I've done 3 books myself, or I'm on book 5 now, like where I'm having my editors do line editing, and it's exhausting, and it's a part of the process you have to go through if you're going to be publishing. But then once you get to the final copy, it's like, now you got to market it. Now you got to figure out, like, okay, am I going to be a self-published author and try to market this on my own? Do I take this, mainstream to a traditional publisher? Do I try to find an agent? There's so many questions on the other side of the fence that I think as a writer, you start to think about them as you're writing, but you can't even begin to digest any of it because you're 150% into writing the book. And, I know, like, even with my first book, it would have been great to meet someone like you to say, do you think this is something I should self-publish? Is this something that I should try to market to a publisher? I ended up going the self-publishing route because it was faster. Like from what I heard, by the time you do your queries and all this stuff, it can take, 1 to 5 years to get the book out. I'm like, no, I just need to give birth right
No,
now.
that's not correct. Actually,
Okay, good.
typically from the time a contract is offered it'll take a year to a year and a half, typically. Some might come out sooner. So, I like self-publishing and I like traditional publishing for different reasons.
Okay.
And I'm not attached as to which way people want to go. I just truly want what is highest and best for each person. So you're absolutely right in saying if you want to get something out quickly, self-publish. Typically, in most instances, you will make more money self-publishing, per book. You're going to make more money per book. However, if you are using your book for your career, you definitely want to try for a traditional publisher. Like, why? Because my first time authors whose books have been in airport bookstores and Time Magazine and Cosmo Magazine, on Hallmark TV, option for Hollywood Film, all of these opportunities happened because their books came out through traditional publishers. So it really depends on a person's end goal. I mean, really, what is like, I like to do like that reverse engineering, like, where do you want to be? What's the purpose in your writing? And then to to figure out what is the best path for that person and their project.
Yeah, and no, I wish we'd met years earlier. I mean, we sort of have, but we hadn't really talked. But I know when, my first book, it was really a matter of I just knew I needed to write it. I mean, everyone's like, why'd you write
Yes.
it? It was just a mission given to me. I had to sit down, I had to pen this book, I wrote it, it felt good, and then I shared it just with, family and friends. And a lot of people I think who write their memoirs, a lot of times it is just that. It's just preserving their legacy for their family and friends. They're not looking to, have the world read their book. But then, going into, when I did my third book, April Rain, like I knew right from the beginning that it needed to be a movie. And it's like, and I know, having these grandiose ideas, you have to whittle it down. And, and I was like, okay, well, great. If it's going to be a movie, then I guess I need to write a script. But not having the experience in writing a script, it was easier to write the prose for it. And now, of course, I have developed it further. But, it's just like having someone to guide you along the way to say, okay, what is your end goal? How can we make you get that goal? A little bit about me, and I think you know this. I was a florist for 34 years. So I relate my books as I did to my brides. Because, the brides come in with this vision of what they want at their wedding. And, the majority of the time, people do have the champagne dreams on that beer budget. So it's a matter of how can I give them the champagne dreams, stay within their budget, stay within their guidelines of what they want. And even, writing books, because I mean, here on the show, I talk to so many authors about their books, and I've coached people and I've edited their books and formatted them and helped them get to publishers on a much smaller scale than you. But, doing that, like saying to them, well, what do you want this book to do? Like I had one girl, she wanted this book to be the introduction to her being a nutrition coach. So, getting it into the people's hands who will read it to say, you know what, I want to hire her to come give a nutrition speech or, to do a class. Like, that's her goal. So I could, kind of guide her in writing the book so that it would be not giving away all of her information, in the book. But it's just fascinating to me that, you're doing this on such a large scale with so many different genres that, kudos to you, and please mentor me. Tell me how to do something like that.
So, I have a team of editors and ghostwriters and book coaches. They're all three in one. And my team is so highly vetted because I have a lot of people approaching me. Hey, I want to learn how to ghostwrite. Well, I'm not the person who's going to hire you. So
Yeah.
when I say that my team is vetted and the majority of them have worked with me for, close to 15 or 20 years, most of them. And so what I mean by that is that anybody who is working for me as an editor, book coach, or ghostwriter has to have worked directly for a traditional publisher or have edited or ghostwritten many books that have sold to the big traditional publishers. Because I was very clear right from the get-go that I want people who are always going to meet publishing industry standards and who understand exactly what that is and what publishers tend to buy. So, we've ghostwritten books that have gotten six-figure deals and major bidding wars. I mean, we really know how to do this and do it well.
Yeah, I had a ghostwriter on the show a couple weeks ago, Michael Chiricella, and he's also written his own books. But it was interesting because as a ghostwriter, he can't really share who he's ghostwriting for. So it's really
That's right. I mean,
hard. Yeah, he can give me a
yes.
sample of the stuff he's done, but he he can't say to me, oh yeah, I did it for, and it wasn't this, but like Hillary Clinton,
Yes,
I mean, like you can't
right,
say that. And I'm like, wow,
right,
that's
right,
a
right, right.
very tough secret, I think, to keep.
Well, on the acknowledgments page of people's books, we ask to be acknowledged. Even when we've ghostwritten a book, we just want to be acknowledged as editors. Because
Yes.
you're right, it's absolutely confidential. It is this person's book. We have to write it in their voice and get their message correct. It's
Yeah.
them, not us.
No, 100%. And,
Yeah,
when I write, I tend to take on the first person voice, but it's not my story. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
so if I'm doing fiction, it's very similar to ghostwriting, I think, because, whether I'm channeling a ghost or a muse or, a part of me that I'm tapping into, it's not my memoir. But I do always say I should write the memoir
Right.
behind the books I write, because those have their own interesting story. But let me
Yes.
ask you, what's the biggest questions that a publisher like needs answered when someone like you, because I'm feeling like you're going to be that medium for the
Yes.
author to the publisher. Like, what are they looking for? What do they ask about?
So there are two considerations to get a traditional publisher. And one part is about the positioning of your book. So for example, for every nonfiction book, we have to put together a business plan called a book proposal. These are 20 to 30 page documents in which we're proving the sale of your book in different categories. I mean, I've written some of these proposals that have gotten like $125,000 deals. I know where these documents need to be. And so the first section of a book proposal is called the overview. And this is, what is this book about and why should a publisher care? And the first sentence, and this is part of my secret sauce I'm going to share, the first sentence of your overview should be the title of your book is the first book to, then fill in the blank. And what I mean by that is that you want to own a lane that is uniquely yours. And if it's especially related to a topic that is trending, and how do you know what topics are trending? Read the New York Times bestseller list, go into a Barnes and Noble and look at all those front shelves that they have books out on tabletops, because
Yeah.
that's what's trending.
So, and they're
And
looking for
so
like that one line, that one log line, not necessarily a summary of the story.
no, it's more than one log line because the overview is actually 4 pages double spaced. However,
Okay. So
that
you can,
first that first sentence title is the first book too. If you own a lane, because they don't want to start looking at something and start rolling their eyes and go, "Oh, we've heard this before."
yeah,
Oh no. Or you're quoting some other people to make your points. No,
yeah,
they want unique thought.
yeah.
So that's really, really critical. So that's just one piece of it. So that's the positioning side of the content side. And
Okay.
some people will have that content side absolutely wrapped up. They've nailed it, but they don't have the other side, which is equally or sometimes many times more important. And that has to do with numbers. It's the business side of publishing. It was
Yeah.
somewhere back around 2007. I mean, we're talking, long time ago. And I had an agent who at that point had sold every single, well, actually consistently has sold every single book that he's ever agreed to take on that I pitched to him. He sold every single one of them. And so we were having a conversation back in like 2007. He said, Randy, it's all come down to publishers sitting with their calculators and they're comparing one
Yeah.
person's numbers to another.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was sitting with Angelina Jolie's literary agent just pre-COVID, and I'm pitching a project to him, and I see him pick up his phone, and I start thinking, I was judging the guy, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
God, that's rude. What is he doing? Checking his messages while I'm pitching him? No, he was looking up my author on YouTube and said, engagement's too small.
Yeah.
Numbers matter. So what are the numbers? What are they looking for and from where? Think about the demographic for your book. So for example, if you've written a business book, minimally, and I'm talking about minimally, you must have 10,000 people on LinkedIn because that's where your demographic is.
Yeah. It's crazy how it is almost like it's a popularity contest.
Well, it's
You
more
have
than
to
that
have the
because
audience to know that you can sell to it. And I see like,
yes,
okay, so, my dear baby, get out. Yeah, it's, the final days of pregnancy, which obviously could be marketed to every single pregnant person right now or whoever has been pregnant. But at the same time, do I have them all following me? No. So it's like, as an author, you think, oh yeah, there's an audience for it. But then as a publisher looks at the author, they're like, oh, well, they don't have enough of a following. So is it more important to know that there is an audience for it, or is it more important to know that the author has an audience built in?
Author has to have the audience. And so, for example, for your book, because I have a lot of referral partners, I would take that book and I would position it for sponsorship. And what that means is a corporate sponsor picking it up to donate it, publish it and donate it to nonprofits that help women in pregnancy. And guess what? Hospitals are nonprofits.
Yeah.
So
And I have given some talks at,
so,
Lamaze classes and things like that, but I'm
things like that. No, but what I'm talking about is, a corporation picking up 20,000 or 50,000 copies
right,
of your book.
right.
So I mean, there actually is potential for sales for that kind of book. I mean, I have connections for film rights, film deals, and just foreign rights and bulk sales. There are just so many different avenues that a book can go down. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just depends.
100%. And I just got back from a writers conference where we were talking about like beyond the book, like what happens beyond this book, because some
Right,
people
right.
will take a book and like for this book, when I host a writers conference, I actually talk about this book, even though it's about childbirth. Birthing a book is very similar to childbirth because you're the only person who can birth the book. I mean, and even if you hire a ghostwriter, you're still birthing the book because you're the only one who knows the story inside. So to get it out, of course, has, fear and anxiety. And then there's the worry of the judgment of, once someone sees your book, like, how are they going to judge it? Or they're going to think about the name of the baby that, oh, you named your baby, what? And, all of that. And, it's very relatable to writers because, we do go through a course of, changing our characters' names or changing the book title names and trying to feel what feels right for us personally, but also trying to take in to play what an audience would think, because, I mean, my beta readers loved me for April Rain when, I would give them copies and they'd say, who's Jessica? And I go, oh, well, Jessica was the Gina you read in the last version, but I changed her name to Jessica. And, just trying to, work through all of that and discuss with writers how even talking about writing a book can help them, but then knowing the audience for the book isn't necessarily the writers. The audience is for, the people who want to read about a murder mystery or a person who wants to read about how to prepare to give birth in 4 days and things like that. But so how does someone pay someone like you to do this? Do you take a percentage? Do you how does that work?
I have a very formal rate sheet, and after I have a conversation with someone, so I understand the scope of what they need. Like,
Yeah.
I will never waste anybody's money. I'm not about that at all.
Yeah.
And so, there's different processes and different fees depending on what a project needs. We never do anything that's not necessary. So, for example, if somebody brings a manuscript to us, first step is analysis. Then it's going to go back to the author to input changes. Then it's going to come to us for editing. So those are separate bits: analysis, editing, things like that. If the book is going to a traditional publisher, we've got to do the book proposal. I offer a very inexpensive way for people to do that. Because I've heard people charging like, $25,000 for these proposals, to write proposals, and I offer a $300 package. I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, I had a
So,
girlfriend who paid someone like $2,000 to write a query letter for her and she hadn't even written the book yet. She just wanted to say, is there an interest in this? And I was like, well, first of all, I'll write your query letter for $2,000. I mean, if you want me to do it, I'll certainly do it. But it's like, I'm thinking you're asking someone if they're interested in your story. Rarely, I think, do people say, oh, no, that's not an interesting story. I mean, everybody's got an interesting story. But if you don't have the story written, why start querying it, And with your program, so for let's say the $300 to write that, the author is writing it themselves, or are they hiring you to write it?
They're writing it using a proposal. I offer a template. Here's all the different sections. And here is a real proposal that I polished for an author. I secured an agent in 1 day of pitching it who sold the book in 1 week. So,
Wow.
like here's the template and here's the model. Just look at it section by section. This is how this author did this that I polished. Agent in one day, publisher
Wow.
in 1 week. And so then I
And
can come in on the back end and I can polish that proposal. But if I see work that the author can do, I will tell them. So I'm only doing the work on the far back end that's really in my genius to do, knowing what those publishers need to see.
yeah, and obviously for, novice writers and people who are looking to query and try to send their summaries and their proposals to a book publisher, they want to know exactly what to send, because you don't want to be
Yes.
sending something that's not professional enough, that doesn't represent your work well enough. And having the connection with, from what I've seen, like going with the publisher, yes, they may give you like a check up front, like, oh yeah, we're going to publish your book, here's a little check up front, and then you get your royalties later. But there's still not a lot from what I understand, there's not a lot of support with the marketing of it. Do you want to talk
So
about that or something? Is that more on the
yeah,
agent's end?
let's just step back, because
Okay.
I really do want to address something like you were talking about. A person just wants to send out a query letter and say, hey, are you interested? This is a vital mistake. It's a very big mistake that a lot of people make, which is to do things out of sequence. Because you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, when I speak with agents who tell me, Randy, I'm getting 1,000 emails a month, 1,000 submissions. I'm not even looking at them. When you have something for me, text me. That's a whole different level of relationship.
Yeah.
I can, text an agent and say, Paula, I've got a hot one. And she'll go immediately to the email that I'm sending, with my
Yeah.
query letter. I don't charge to write query letters.
Okay.
I just know what I need
Yeah.
to say and I say it. We've got the proposal, I pull out what I need. So the correct sequence is your proposal is written, your manuscript is complete. A lot of people will say, well, can't you just shop it on a proposal and sample chapters? Good luck with that, especially if you're a first-time author. You don't have the leverage when so many people are vying for the space you want with a publisher. And you're coming in with just a short sample. You're lowering your chance of success. So you
Yeah.
want your manuscript analyzed, edited, polished, the proposal's ready, everything's absolutely ready to go
Yeah.
before you query anybody.
Yeah. Well, I'll share, I think, a little mistake that I made. I mean, I don't know, or a mistake that a publishing company made. I'm going to say they made this mistake. How's that? So when I had done April Rain, I was like, okay, I'll go through KDP Publishing. I mean, I'd already done one through there. I knew the format. I felt comfortable. So I, went through the whole process of doing it, but I didn't put it for sale online, but I printed off an author copy for me because, I wanted to, number one, see the bleed lines. I wanted to make sure that, I'm a little anal that I want my chapters to be on the, odd pages. I mean, like sometimes people will start a book and, whatever, the chapters are back to back, but I just like it to have this like certain layout. And, so I was able to do that. And, I had a nice little, sample copy with the little print across it, do not for resale. And I went to a writer's conference, had a meeting with a publisher and an agent. And I was like, this is my manuscript. Like, it's not out in the public yet, but, this is how I see it. And, what do you think? And they literally like, oh, you already have in book format. We're not interested. And they like kind of walked away. And I was like,
Yes,
so was that a
yeah,
mistake showing it to them in a finished product instead of giving them the 8.5 by 11?
I have a proprietary way of pitching when I'm at like a speed dating kind of event or a
Yes.
conference, and which I'm using a graphically designed pitch sheet, that has certain information on it that the publishers absolutely want to see or agents want to see, so they can make split-second decisions about whether they want to consider a project or not. So it's something I've been doing for many years. In fact, I had one, and I had a 3-word pitch that nailed an agent immediately with one of my proprietary sheets. They were, glossy, gorgeously designed. I'm meeting with an agent who has picked up other projects from me in the past, and we're meeting in New York, and she said, Randy, what do you have for me? And, after a big hug, Randy, what do you have for me now? And I held up this sheet, and this is very visual. I inhaled deeply, went, I smell money. That was my 3-word pitch for a book that wound up in a bidding war, and it was a 6-figure advance
Wow.
because it had the right components to warrant a 6-figure advance. So, but
Wow.
using these proprietary sheets, which are going to tip the sale in the favor of the author by sharing something that's going to make an agent's eyebrows go from here up to their
Yeah.
hairline. That's what I need to do. I'm always looking to tip the sale in the favor of every single author, who I can pitch.
And I'm assuming just with the time, energy, and years of experience that you have, that's gotten you the credentials where they're like, hey, what do you have? Because making
Yeah.
those
Oh, yeah,
connections
absolutely.
takes time.
Just pre-COVID, I was in New York at the last Book Expo America before it shut down. This was
Yeah.
the big feeding frenzy. And I had all my meetings always set in advance. I had 25 meetings in 2.5 days, 22 meetings with publishers, 3 with top literary agents, pitching 16 projects. Yes, I know how to do this.
Yeah. I love
And I
it. That
love it.
sounds fascinating to me because I do like that
Yes,
little speed round of, I'll call it the speed round of dating because it's like, even I'll
yes,
do that with myself with my projects because I'm like, okay, what do I want to work on today? And it's like, okay, which one's calling out the loudest? Which one sounds like, it can be done and things like that. So yeah, just
yes.
so fascinating. Um, so you wrote your 2 books. I do want to talk a little bit about Crappy to Happy because it's very cool that you had it featured in a movie. So do you want to share a little bit about that before our
Sure.
time's up here?
Yes. With Crappy to Happy, I sold it directly to a publisher. And some years later, the movie Eat, Pray, Love came out, and I was in Santa Cruz at the time with a circle of girlfriends. It's like, hey, opening night of Eat, Pray, Love. Let's go have dinner. Let's go to the movie. I had no idea my book, Crappy to Happy, was in the movie.
That's
And
amazing.
it's in a bookstore scene before Julia Roberts goes on her big trip. She's in a bookstore and she picks up my book from the shelf, gets a big audience laugh, and buys my Crappy to Happy book. I had
That's so
no
cool. And I
idea.
also kind of wonder, like, they didn't need your permission for that.
No, apparently not. I had an agent. We contacted them to see if we can get some kind of royalties, for the use of it. And Sony came back and said, we just gave her $150,000 product
Yeah,
placement
yeah,
in
yeah.
our movie. In our movie.
Right.
So we said,
Yeah, you're like, I'll take the
and
product placement. I'm happy with that.
but the truth of it is you never know what doors are gonna open for you
Yeah.
when you have a book come out through a traditional publisher. And I want to give you one of the wildest but totally true stories. I had an author who was a bored housewife in California. And she and her 2 bored housewife friends got together and they created a group called the Chicks in Charge. And they decided they were going to take back the dreams they left behind. So this is MJ Margraff. It was her book called Finding the Wow. And her dream was to become a pilot. But she had 2 major obstacles. One was it's a very male dominated industry. And 2, she had to learn how to fly a damn plane.
Mm.
So she does that, but she doesn't stop there. She becomes a flight instructor, but she doesn't stop there. On the International Space Station, there was a game that she devised with high school students that they played. And so bored housewife in California winds up with a full-page feature in Oprah Magazine for her book, Finding the Wow. I mean,
Wow.
wow is right. You have no idea what doors can open for
Yeah.
you. All my
Yeah.
first-time authors, and Eleanor Stutz, first-time author in Time Magazine. Her career skyrockets because of
Yeah.
that. So,
No,
that's
it
that's
really is
that's
interesting
the
what happens
fun.
beyond a book. I mean, if you told
Oh
me
yeah,
2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago that I would be hosting a podcast called Why Write, talking to other writers, I've been like, no, that's not what I'm going to do.
no,
I'd be like, no,
yeah,
I wrote a book.
right.
Yeah. I'm a small time author. And now all of a sudden it's like the world is kind of turning on its axis here. And and I'm changing, I shouldn't say I'm changing who I am. I guess I'm becoming my more authentic self.
Yes, yes.
So,
You know,
I know you had a little screen. I wanted you to show your books, but I know you had like a little presentation that we can kind of show the audience a little bit more about Author One Stop. We have a few minutes left here on the show. So I don't know if you want to like pop that. Oh, good. Yeah. Pop that up on the screen. Cause I just think it's really cool that people can, see this, that, you give talks and you're
Yes.
just superwoman.
Can you see what I have? Or
Yes.
did it not?
Love, live,
Okay,
love,
great.
thrive. Honda sponsoring you to give a nice talk.
Yes. I'm speaking to 250 women at this conference, and my hand is in the position of there's the book you want to write and the book a publisher will buy. Are they the same book? I love to have those 15-minute calls with people so I can help people discern that. This is me starting my publishing journey. I had written
Oh,
Crappy to Happy, was looking for a publisher, wasn't getting anywhere at the time, and stood off the Mill Valley, the 101 exit in Mill Valley, California on Wednesday at a rush hour.
I
A
love
publisher.
that. That's something I would do.
Yeah, so I call this my random act of chutzpah, or in my case, my Randy act of
Oh, I
chutzpah.
love it. The
A
Randy
pub-
act of Huspah. I'm going to start doing
Yes,
that.
the publisher called me that evening. He was the publisher of a national magazine. I actually became editor-in-chief of his national magazine. But say, be careful what you ask for, because my side did not read author seeks publisher for her book. But of course,
Awesome.
being an editor-in-chief of a national magazine just moved me along in my writing profession. This is a scene from Book Expo America. Although Book Expo America has gone under, it gives people, it'll give you an idea of the playing field. Here is an indoor, a little section of this Book Expo, and it's my
Wow.
job to know every single booth, what's on their shelves, who their buyers are, who I need to contact, and what genre, what goes where. So it's my playing field. I
Yeah. I
came up
had a
with this.
playing field like that as a florist at the floral shows, so I can only
Yeah, you
imagine.
understand.
Yeah,
And I
totally.
realized every word I wrote was written in joy. And I came up with this quote: that which is seated in joy can only result in joy. So
Oh,
is
I
your
love-
process fun?
Yes.
So I have
That's
a
my motto.
challenge.
I always even tell my kids, I'm like, they play competitive sports, and I always say to team, just have fun today. And they look at me and they're like, we're here to win. I go, it doesn't matter if you win, you're gonna make more memories if you're having fun. Just have fun
Yes.
today.
So I have a challenge for everyone listening and watching. And my challenge is, you know how when you read, especially a nonfiction book, and you'll see like there's often a quote from a famous person at the beginning of a chapter or at the end of it. So this is my challenge to everyone listening. You be the person that other people quote. You be the person that other people create memes off of. It is your impact that you're here to make, your unique thoughts, your voice.
Hmm.
So that is my challenge. That is my challenge to you.
Amen. Amen. I love that.
Take a powerful quote from each chapter. Start it with that quote. Just something that's a strong takeaway for your readers.
Well,
So
Randy, this is amazing. Yeah, what's their secret?
so the secret has to do with fear. So people have their dreams, but everybody has a ceiling or a ceiling, wherever it is, in which fear stops them in creating their great dream. So I was on the floor of the Book Expo America as a newbie writer looking for my first publisher. And there's like 40,000 people and everybody's going a mile a minute. They're so fast. And I'm going towards my dream, towards my goal. So I'm walking on the show floor with my friend Jill Lublin, who's a national publicity strategist. So she's very comfortable going up to the media. And we're walking along, and all of a sudden I hear her go, and she's rushing after CNN, and I'm like doing this little hiccup, like CNN, and I'm following. And she makes the connection, and we move along, and she goes, USA Today. And I go, USA Today. And I realized I had what I call the hiccup of hesitation, which is when we're going towards our dream, but there's still that some little minuscule bit of fear. And I realized I wanted to overcome that fear, because I realized that fear means I'm not going to get to my goal as quickly as I want. I can still get there, but it's going to take me longer. There are steps, there are things I need to overcome. So I
Yes.
decided I would physically model my friend Jill on the show floor. And we're walking along all of a sudden, and I saw the badge and I went, Self Journal. And I went right up to that person. And so wherever you notice you have these hiccups of hesitation, you're going to your dream, towards your dream. And I talk about
Yeah.
this in the Power of Miracle Thinking. You're moving towards it, but wherever those hiccups of hesitation are, your goal is not going to typically come about as quickly
Yeah.
as you might like.
Oh, I
So
love
just,
that phrase, hiccup of
yes,
hesitation, because I do know it. I mean, not just as a writer, but doing sometimes even when you're doing public speaking, or when I'm doing a major floral event,
whatever.
like all of a sudden you can have that moment of like self-conscious awareness where you freeze
Yes,
and you like
yes,
have to hesitate. I mean, for me, I know like if I'm doing, a public speaking talk or running, a retreat or a seminar, or even like doing a wedding with the flowers, it's like, okay, you got to do it. Just do it. Just do it, and that would be the Nike quote. We'll get back into making my own quote later. But, it is I love it. Hiccup of hesitation, because for that, like it can be a split second, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 10 years, that hiccup. You never know. But it's like all of a sudden you just stop and you're like, is this what I should be doing? And the conscious mind plays a trick on you when you know what you're supposed to be doing, and I
yes,
really like that a lot. And mimicking other people, it is true that you can gain confidence by,
yes,
watching what someone else is doing, because if they're doing something that you respect and honor and you're saying, I think I could do that, well, follow them and do it. I mean, I just did a vaudeville act the other night, which I never thought I could do. And they were like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. And I was like, you know what? If they have the confidence in me to do it, why not try? I'm just going to try it. Who knows?
yes,
I did it. It was fun.
right,
Now we got another gig booked. I didn't think I thought it was one and done. You never know.
right, right.
Oh, so all right. So author one stop. Let's tell the audience, or how I want you to tell the audience. Author one stop. What it is, where they can find you, how they can maybe, if there's a author out there who has a finished manuscript, who is able to do this, how they can do this.
Or they're in the process of writing it, or even just thinking about writing a book.
Yeah. How do they get a
So,
book deal with a publisher?
I have my information in the chat here, or you can just easily go to author1stop.com. And the one is spelled out ONE. Author1stop.com is just an easy place to jump on my schedule.
Yeah, and you have a great website. I mean, it's very fun. There's a lot of fun stuff to read. There's a lot of educational stuff on there. And, you have your books also that, if someone's looking to read Crappy to Happy, or, the power of magic, not magical, I'm sorry, miracle thinking,
The power of
it's,
miracle thinking. Yeah.
yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry for the little glitch we had with Zoom, but I think, the majority of America who's used to Zoom is used to these glitches that COVID has taught us, and we adapt well
Yes.
with it.
Yes.
So, well, I want to thank you so much, Randy Peyser, for coming on. Please, I will put the links below in, in the summary here, both for the YouTube channel of yWrite and on all the podcasts. And for those watching it on your local cable channel here in Western Massachusetts and Connecticut, and possibly even Rhode Island and New York, who will be hopping on soon, you also can, hop on the web to get information for Author One Stop, and, feel free to email me and I can put you in contact with her too. And again, thank you for being such a loyal audience to yWrite. I'm having a blast doing the show. I meet so many interesting people who inspire me. And, if they inspire me, I just know they're inspiring you. And, at the end of each show, I like to give a prompt for those who are writers, and for those who, have that urge inside that I have a story I can write. But Randy gave us a great idea today about how, a lot of times when we write a book, or even when we're journalizing or thinking, we think of someone else's quote. We think of their quote. We're like, okay, like, what quote will I think of today? I mean, obviously you have the Nike quote of just do it. If you're going to write, you just do it. For me, sometimes I go a little bit on my Catholic rootings, and I'll reach out to Saint Teresa or something. And, where, she wants to let roses fall from heaven and shower others with kindness. And, I obviously want to be like that, but I don't want to use their quote, and I don't want you to use someone else's quote. So, set your timer, even if it's for 2 minutes. It might be 10 minutes today, and you might have to think about it for a couple minutes, but think about a quote. Maybe there's something that you do say to other people that you don't even realize. One of my quotes I always do say is just enjoy what you're doing. Have fun. Because if you have fun, you're going to make memories. And, sit down, write out your quote today, and have fun doing it. And I will see you next time on yWrite. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.